Hi everyone, welcome to Rendering Teardown. My name's Simon. Today we're going to have a look at this nighttime rendering around a campfire. So, as usual, we're going to start with composition. In terms of composition, you can see we're on a vertical framing, which I think works quite well with the subject, which is mainly the campfire here. And I think in terms of ratio, it's also quite working sort of okay. The third is almost on the horizon, and we do have a bit of sky. The thing is, there are a couple of things I think are a little bit clumsy. The first one I think is the sky here, because the thing is we do have like a really good good looking sky with the stars and stuff like that, and I think it's kind of a shame to have this branch in front of it, because the first thing is it's a little bit low definition in terms of details. It's not really like there's no enough details for a close-up like that. And it's really covering too much of the sky. So what I did is to actually take it away like that. So as you can see, there's like a lot of it breathes a lot more when you take it away. So I think it's better this way. Second thing is regarding as well the framing itself. Vertical is really good, and I think I would just make it a little bit bigger like that, so that you have your lower third on the horizon. The other thing I think is a bit disturbing is the scale ratio between the trees here and this huge campfire here, because I think it would be quite interesting to have much bigger trees. You cannot make them much bigger, I think, but still. So that's why I sort of started trying to make them a bit bigger. But still, I think this guy here is a bit too big. And I think it mainly comes from the fact that as you can see, the distortion is quite high. So I think the focal that has been used is a little bit too high, so you might want to not high but low, like something around maybe 16 millimeters or something like that. But still, it's a bit too much. You might want to stay around a human eye focal, which is something between 50 and 35 is fine. That way you don't get too much distortion. The final thing I think in terms of composition is a bit disturbing. So I think we do lack a little bit of foreground here. Like this is really nice, but I would have maybe made it a bit bigger. And this guy here, I think I'm not really sure you want to cut it the way it's done here. At first, when I saw the image, I thought it would be interesting to actually zoom out and have like the guy standing in front of the fire, just seeing the shadow, the core shadow and cast shadows, and the fire and the trees and something, just zoomed out quite a bit. I obviously cannot Photoshop that, but that's what I think could be actually quite interesting. And the other thing as well is that I'm not even sure. It sits a little bit weirdly in the image, because as you can see, there's this sort of a border here, and we're not even sure his feet. We don't really see where he stands, which is a little bit annoying. And we don't really see if it's been photoshopped in or if it's a 3D model or whatever, because in terms of integration, it's working pretty well, although I would make him a little bit darker here. Anyway, that's the first thing. Tiny thing regarding details as well. I really like the texture of the ground here. It really catches the highlights and the shadows really well. I'm a little bit less convinced by this area, especially because we kind of like around this kind of campfire, I think we expect rougher materials. So this is working well. This is sort of okay, but this is way too shiny, I think, or at least I would at least add some sort of bump or something like that, so that we get the grain of the wood texture. Here it's a little bit too flat. The main topic in the image is the fire. There are a couple of things that I think are missing. This is the very beginning of the version of the fire. I think there are a couple of things that are details that should be added, and the first one are mainly two details. The first one is that the fire doesn't feel bright. Like, we do have these sort of highlights here, but still we might want to have something a little bit brighter. So that's why I started to add something like that. And the other thing that I think is missing, that is quite beautiful in this sort of fire, is I just picked a couple of references. Like this one is, I think, quite self-explanatory. Is this sort of little sort of speckles or whatever that are quite good looking and really add like there's some sort of motion when you look at them, which is quite interesting. So that's why I tried to do it that way. I think that's pretty much it, yeah. So they would have to be a little bit brighter and things like that, but the idea is to get some sort of density in the image here, and some sort of dynamic. The other thing as well, is regarding as I said, the fire brightness. So you might want to recreate kind of brighter areas, because otherwise it's a little bit like it's not bright enough. Maybe it's a little bit too much here, but still you get the idea. Could also try like a burn-in Dutch thing here, because the Dutch tool is quite efficient to do this sort of things. That one I'm gonna decrease. So yeah, something like that. Something like that. So yeah, you get the difference. The other thing as well with the fire is to actually have, like, there's a little bit like a problem with the hues. So that's why this one is a curve adjustment layer with I've just pushed up the reds, so that you get this sort of thing. It might be a little bit too much, but still the idea is to get like a proper flame aspect, because as you can see here, it's quite red them as well, which is why actually I could these guys could select them and maybe change something a little bit more red, something like that. Anyway, and the other thing is the background here. I just decreased, as you can see here, a little bit the greens, because even though vegetation here is green, you still cannot have like the exact same green you would have in real life, because the light source is not the same kind of light source you would have with the sunlight. So the hue of the vegetation is slightly different, and the rest of the vegetation that is not directly in the light source is getting a little bit purple or something like that, because it's in the shadow. There's another thing regarding details that is a little bit problematic, is the consistency between like different objects in terms of time exposure. Because as you can see here, this guy here is a little bit blurred, whereas our wood here is not blurred at all. And as you can see, for example, in this reference, we have like these sort of thing are the little speckles here, but in a long time exposure, which means here you cannot really see the flames. And here, instead of having small dots, you have like just sort of streaks or stuff like that. And the thing is, well, you have to choose. Either you have long time exposure and you have, like this guy could be a little bit blurred and you cannot see the flames so perfectly, and the little speckles I added would be some sort of like they would be doing things like that. Or you choose to have like a really short time exposure, which means everything is supposed to be quite sharp and this guy shouldn't be blurred, and neither should be the flames nor the speckles. So it's really be careful when you have basically when you have, like when you're thinking about doing long time exposure, just be careful that everything that is in motion in the image actually gets blurred. Otherwise it'll look a little bit weird. I was playing around for a couple of seconds with the, like maybe we could add something in the background to, like the in itself, like that the sky works, but still maybe this could be fun. I really don't know. Maybe it's not that useful. I'll just leave it. But anyway, not a big problem. I still think there's something to be done with the foreground. It really could be something as simple as as adding what I was saying, like that. I think it's basically, the idea is to, I think, get rid of the foreground with the bench that is way too shiny and that doesn't really help understanding how it works. So maybe something like that. It could be a little bit more subtle, of course, but the idea is there, I think. I think I'll stop there for the image. The rest of the contrast and things like that were pretty well done, so there's no problem with that. And saturations were okay, so there's not really anything else to say regarding the adjustments. It was really more of a matter of composition and adding details in the fire, because this piece here is really basically the centerpiece of the whole image. So you have to be careful to add all the extra details that makes it more understandable, and that really makes it pop out in the image. So that's it. I hope you've learned interesting tips for this types of rendering, and that you'll be able to insert them in your next renderings. So I'll see you next time. Bye guys.
New